Hey everyone, welcome to another Tea Time tutorial. My name is Brian Robinson and I am the lead advocate at Code Contemporary, a company meant to teach you all about modern development practices. In the past couple weeks, we've been talking about static site generators. And this week is going to be no exception. We're going to be continuing our tutorial series on Eleventy.js, on a JavaScript-based static site generator. But this week, we're going to take a slight detour and we're going to go and set up a CMS for our static site generator. So if you're curious about the past couple episodes, we did initial setup with Eleventy, and then we moved into managing data in some of the interesting ways that Eleventy gives us. And then this week, we're going to hook it up into a CMS called Netlify CMS. Made to work really, really well with the Netlify host, the Netlify static host, but it is something that can be used on all sorts of different hosts. It is a Git-based CMS, which is really, really handy. It pushes to master or pushes to a branch and then pull requests into master. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, like always, I have some tea with me. If you don't have any tea, brew some up and we'll get going. This is a Ceylon Sonata. It's a lovely black tea. And I put a little bit of Bella Luna Blue, which is a blueberry and lemongrass tea. And it is doing wonders for me, considering the past couple weeks I haven't been able to have caffeine in my tea. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that I've done behind the scenes between last week and this week. First and foremost, I put a little bit of style behind what we're working with. So you can see this is a showcase of the data that we built last time, where we went to the meetup.com API and ingested that data directly into Eleventy via a JavaScript data file. And so now we have all this kind of set up in a way that it looks nice and is customizable. My idea behind this is that any new user group could technically go clone this repository, change a couple variables, and they'd have their own branded starting place. But one of the big things I did behind the scenes was I set up the Netlify CMS so that we could take a look at what it's going to look like in the end. So I'm going to go to the /admin at my live URL. It's going to present me with a login screen. And I'm going to go ahead and log in with credentials that I set up in Netlify. And then it brings me into the CMS dashboard view. As you can see, there's a cat that's going to be wandering throughout. So apologize for that. Hopefully she does not knock out my mic like she did 2 weeks ago. But you can see along the left-hand side, we have the idea of collections, which Eleventy uses. Jekyll uses, a lot of static site generators use this idea of collections. You can see we have posts, which is what it defaults to in the landing page. And so this post over, oops, let me get the live site back up. This past meetup note over here, notes from March 26th, that is the post that we have in here. It is editable in the CMS. So we can go ahead and click to edit that, and I can show you, it has the title, it has our publish date that we can choose as a date field. It has the ability to use a WYSIWYG editor in here and embed media in the post, as well as switching to a markdown view so you can take a look at the actual code that's being generated and put into our markdown file in Eleventy. So that's posts, and we can actually make a change. Every time we make a change in the Netlify CMS, what that does is, right now in the way I have it set up in this site, is it actually pushes to master and makes it go live. There's an editorial workflow that you can use in Netlify CMS that I'm not going to talk about this week, but if you're interested in more information, you can go to Netlify, the Netlify CMS website, netlifycms.org, and they've got a lot of information about it there. It allows you to have it push to a separate branch and then sends a pull request to do the preview, which also plays with the idea of Netlify, the static host, and the way they have their branch deploys set up, and you can actually preview that live. So yeah, so we could make a change here and it would go live, but we can also go back and take a look at, I went ahead and set up a separate collection for doing sponsors, because most user groups need a sponsor to make their stuff work. And in the CMS, it is going to have that. And this has no big markdown area. It just has data, a name, an image, and a link that it can link out to. And you can choose different images. It finds an image directory, and we'll look at that in a second, in your Git repo, and automatically can load them up in here. So you can select different images, you can make them go live, you can upload new images, and that upload will also push that image up to your master branch as well. And then I had this idea of pages, which are one-off pages as opposed to collection types. One of which is some data around the home page. We can change the title of the home page and that description. And then we had this idea of site settings, which we talked about last week a little bit with that JSON file. And these two items correspond to the two data points in that file. So this is what the admin looks like. And as you can see, we'll go ahead and make a change to this site. We'll change the home page title so we can take a look at that. Hi, live stream. So you can see it changes over here in kind of a live preview, although that's not what the homepage looks like. But I'm going to go up to publish. This publish now is here because if you were using the editorial workflow, there'd be another option to save the draft. So we'll go ahead and save that in. And it says the entry is saved. When we pull up the homepage, it's not going to be live yet. And that's because it does have to go through, it deploys up to GitHub, and then it's going to run my build script up on Netlify in that continuous integration pattern. That should be pretty quick though. So let's refresh the page, and I would pull up Netlify, but I don't want to go through that process. There you go. All right. So there is always going to be a delay. So sometimes if you're thinking about using Netlify CMS with maybe an overly picky client, that might not be the best fit, but it is going to be something that allows you to use a static site generator plus a CMS, which I find super intriguing for the future. So let's talk about how this is actually accomplished. This is kind of the demo. We're going to go back to a point where it is not yet implemented. So actually, if you go to this URL and we go to admin, I don't actually have a login set up, and there's actually no collection set up yet either. So the main things that we need to do to get this up and running in our code are going to be to set up an admin directory in Eleventy. So Eleventy likes to take a look at the directory structure and bring those over into our into our live site as templates. But we're also going to have this idea of a config.yaml inside of that, and the index page. The index page, this is just boilerplate I pulled directly from the Netlify CMS documentation. All it basically does is it loads the Netlify CMS React application and handles everything for you on that page. So this is really just a pass-through file that is meant to go live as is with really no changes there. So you can include the script on this page, and it's going to load it up for you. And then the config.yaml file is where we're going to be doing and setting up all of our editing functionality. So to start with, you got to have a couple things in there. You have to provide it what they call a backend, which is really kind of more along the lines of authentication. And so I use the Git gateway because that allows for people who don't have a GitHub account to do this, but also Netlify CMS supports a whole host of other ways of dealing with this outside the Git gateway and Netlify's identity package. You can use GitHub just as a login. You can use some OAuth stuff. All those are a little bit more complicated. I like the simplicity of using the Git gateway. And then you also need to specify a media folder that is where those images live in your tree structure. So if we look at our left-hand sidebar here and find the images folder, that is where those files are going to live going forward. So this can be whatever directory you want it to be. It can be embedded down deeper. You can even have maybe an uploads folder inside of an images folder. All that is possible. All that is just changing out this string to be where you want the Netlify CMS to upload the images. And then the last thing that we need inside of here is going to be our actual collection information, which I did not go ahead and boilerplate up. So we're going to write that from scratch a little bit. And it's going to be in YAML. So we're going to have collections, and we're just going to start with our posts collection so we can do it as simple as possible to begin with. It takes a name and a label. And the name is going to be used in the routes in the CMS itself. So this is going to be something you want to be URL escaped. And then we want our label is going to be used in the UI. So you could have this name be posts, and you could have your users see something completely different. It could be blog posts. It could be, in our case, this would be meetup notes maybe. It's going to take the folder that this lives in inside of Eleventy or whatever your static site generator is. In this case, it is the posts directory, as you can see over here in my tree. It takes a value of create, which you can set to true or false. This allows you to control if this is something that can be added to in the CMS, or if you only want users to be able to edit inside this collection. We do want users to be able to create, so we'll set that to true. And then it takes the slug, which is what we want our final output URL to be on the client side. So this is what we're looking for in terms of the actual file name template that is going to create out of this. So if you look at my posts over here, we have welcome-post.markdown. So you could have a date put in here. You could have a whole bunch of stuff. For me, I just want this to be the slug that is generated, which needs to be inside of quotation marks. It still needs to be a string. And then inside of this, we can now specify a fields array that is a collection of objects. And the objects are going to be how we tell the Netlify CMS what sort of data to put into a field. So if you remember from when we looked at live, let me open that back up real fast. If we look at our posts really have 3 fields. They have a title, which is just a text field, a publish date, which is a date type field, and a markdown enabled field down here at the bottom. So I'm going to come in and we're going to go and we're going to specify those. So we're going to say it's an object. We want this to have a label, which is the label that's going to be visible. So in this case, we'll make it title. This could be post title. It could be really any string you want it to be. It's going to accept a name, and this is actually going to be what our variable ends up being in our template, which is already set to title. I have a cat next to me. I'm going to kick her off. And there we go. And by the way, if you have any questions all along the way, feel free to go ahead and post them over in the chat. There is a little bit of a delay, so I'll get to them when I can, but I want to make sure that as we go, if anything comes up, that I know that you're confused about something or need a little extra input on something else. So name, label, and then we want what Netlify considers the data type. It considers a widget. And there's a lot of documentation on the Netlify website itself about widgets, but there are a decent number of common ones that come out of the box. Boolean, date, datetime, file, image, list. We're going to use our text as our field type, which is a widget called string. And we're going to save that in. And then we're going to have another object for our next field. Each of these is one object containing all the data about that field. So it's going to have a label as well, and this is going to be image. This could also be like preview image or any number. Oh, sorry, I moved on to my cheat sheet. Not image. We want date, right? So this could be date. It could be publish date. I'm going to make it publish date to make it as synonymous with what we saw in the demo as possible. It takes a name as well. And in this case, I know that my variable name is date that I'm looking for in my template. And then it takes the widget as well. And in this case, it is going to be the date time widget. And that's going to automatically make that nice drop down in the CMS. It's already configured to take care of all of that for you. And then we're going to create one more field. And that is going to be that markdown field. And so we're going to have, again, a label. We'll call this one post body. It could be body, it could be content, it could be whatever is going to make the most sense to your end user. We're going to have a name again, and in this case, it is going to be body because that is what our Eleventy is expecting, our Eleventy install is expecting. And then we have a widget, and this is just markdown. And again, there's documentation on all these widgets on the Netlify CMS website. There's also hidden, there's list, which creates an array in your data, which is really helpful. Number object, there's all sorts of stuff. Relation is really fun. It's a little bit more complicated than we'll get into in this basic intro, but it allows you to actually hook into another collection to bring in data, which is super helpful. So that is all we need for our posts. We've given it meta information about what the posts are. We told it where those files are supposed to live, what the file name is supposed to look like, whether or not a user can create, and then we also gave it the types of fields we want every post to have. One thing that you might run into is if you have fields that are in your post and you don't put them into the CMS, it will overwrite those in your front matter. So you do want to, if you want to be something that is always there, but you don't want your users to be able to edit that, you can create a hidden field as well. So we'll label this one hidden field. Doesn't really matter because the user's not going to see it. It's going to take a name of, we'll call it layout, because this is actually a great use case for using it. It would help if I had my commas in place. And then we're going to specify a widget of hidden, and then we can also specify a value in the default, which I'm actually going to pull up the docs real fast just to make sure I don't get this one wrong. And we're going to take a look at default, which is here. Yeah, so we'll go to hidden. Yeah, so default is just the word for the key, and it takes any string. So if we wanted the layouts to change, we could have this have a default, and it would just take a string here. So templates / new template, and that would automatically inject that into it. So that's a really good use case for a hidden field. This is the variable, the type, and the default. One thing also, if you didn't want your post body to be a required field, you can set required to be false inside of it. Right now we're just going to have everything be required. So we've specified all this data. All this data is now going to be something that we can edit in the CMS, but we haven't actually specified any users or any way to log in. So I'm going to go ahead and push this up to my repository. Adds posts to config. Push that up. And we're going to go take a look inside the Netlify admin, and we're going to set up Netlify to be our authentication mechanism. So Netlify built in has this idea of identity. And it is something that you do have to go in and enable, but it's going to allow us to create users, to invite users, to allow users to sign up, all kind of out of the box, and it works pretty seamlessly with Netlify CMS, which is super handy. So I click that button, and you do get a certain amount of users for free, which is really excellent of Netlify to offer that. Once you go past a certain point, you're paying per group of user, but for most of our use cases, you might not hit that end cap. So no users are found. I'm also going to go into invite users, and I'm going to invite myself, Brian at codecontemporary.com. Feel free to email me any questions you have as well at that email address. So that's set up. You can set up roles, and the roles can match up with permissions inside Netlify CMS. Again, maybe a topic for another video. But you can see you can edit the user, give them a name, set their roles, delete them if you need to. You can generate a password reset, but you can also have that automatically happen for the user on the fly as well. So we're going to go into our settings real fast, and we need to do one more thing to use the Git gateway inside of this. We're going to go to our identity settings. We're going to scroll down. We're going to make this invite only, because I don't want all you hooligans on the internet editing the site, even though no one is paying attention to this site. I'm going to make it invite only. And I'm going to come down past all the templates, and I'm going to enable the Git gateway. And that's really what I want to use to make it as easy as possible on me, because I don't want to handle any bit of this authentication. So we'll enable Git gateway. It hits my GitHub account, sets it up for me, brings over our access token, and it is good to go for this repository and this repository only, which is super handy as well. It is just for this site. So now that I've made all those changes and pushed up my deploys, make sure the deploy is up and running. It is unfortunately still unqueued, because that is the way live streaming works. Any questions while the build gets going? Let's see. I'll take that as a no for now, even with the delay. We'll go ahead and go in here. You can see here is all that fun stuff. And we'll go to /admin. We will log in. So I'm going to log in to my Gmail. Can't see it because I don't want you seeing all of my excellent emails that I get on a regular basis. It is mostly spam, which, you know, that's how the internet works nowadays. But we're going to go ahead. I'm clicking on an invite that I've got. There's literally just a link here that says, we'll show this off real fast. Let's see. There we go. There's a little spot that says, accept the invite. So I will indeed accept that invite. Thank you very much. Complete your sign up, which is just creating a password. And it's going to bring us back here. And you know, I think I skipped a step, but we're going to see if it works anyway. It does. Cool. So now we are logged in, and we are on the wrong website, I think. Let's go to Netlify Dev and see what my site name is supposed to be. No, that's right. Although interestingly, it is finding all this information. That can't be right. This is what happens when you have too many quick things set up. Yeah, that's right. Oh, it's because it hasn't actually deployed yet still. Because actually I did set this up and test it earlier to make sure it was going to work, and I tested the data. Full message. All right, that I believe is more likely what we were looking at. We are still in queue. Why is that in queue? This is where technology is great. I'm not sure why this is not building yet. Build is ready to start. Let's just trigger deploy manually and see what happens. Clear cache and deploy site. It thinks I have another build running. All right. Deploys. Well, this is excellent. Probably the most watchers of a live stream that I've had, and my build decides to completely fail and not error out. So, were this to have happened, this would have then taken us to the home page, logged us in, and given us the ability to edit like what we saw inside of the demo that I did at the beginning. The other thing that I want to show off, and we'll let the build try to run in the background, and I'm going to show off this other idea, is this idea that you have separate pages as well, and they are not full collections. And to do that, we need to set up a way of actually putting in a pseudo collection that is of our pages. And that's going to be for both pages and data files, which is super handy if you want to set some global data. So inside of our collection, and usually when you're creating these, like the documentation shows all these fields being on a single line. So I'm kind of thrown off by that a little bit, but I'm not particularly good at editing YAML. So we're going to hopefully get our white space correct. We're going to go back one, and we're going to create a new collection, and we're going to name this one pages. And this could be anything. You can actually set up multiple ways of this to be set up, but pages is going to be the easiest word to use there. And we're going to give it pages has a name and a label. So our label is going to be pages, and the name actually is the lowercase version. I got that backwards. And then inside this, we're also going to have, if we have commas properly, there we go. We're going to create then what Netlify CMS calls the files. And it's called files because really these equate to singular files inside of your Eleventy package. So in this case, index.html is going to be one of our files, and then a data file that I want to set up is going to be a file. So we're going to set up our home page first. So we're going to say there's a files object, or a files array, and then inside that we have a label of home page. So our first page will be our home page field. It has a user visible name of, or sorry, a variable name of homepage. The label is the user visible one. And then we can specify the file that this is editing. So in this case, it is the index.html file. Then again, we have our fields like we had before. And that's going to be an object. And this is actually where the idea of that hidden field default comes in, because each of my collection items, I inherit the data from a data file inside the folder. Eleventy lets me do that to make it really, really easy to not have to repeat myself over and over again in those pages. But my pages themselves each have a unique template. So I want to make sure that's in there so it doesn't get overridden, but is there in a way that my users won't edit and maybe make a mistake on. So in this case, it's going to have a label of layout. It's going to have a name of layout because that's what the variable name needs to be. It's going to have a widget of hidden like what we had before. And when you look at the documentation, you'll see this is really the format that these end up being. And then it's going to have a default. And it's going to be, I believe, let's take a look, inside my layouts folder. So this inherits, it's just what you would put in the front matter for your Eleventy or your Jekyll build, which automatically goes into the templates folder for me, so I don't have to put that in there. It's going to be the layouts/homepage.html. Really, it's just a string that we want to pass into the front matter of the markdown file or the HTML file or whatever it's going to end up being. And then from there, we're going to have another item in the array, which they need to have the dashes in front of them. And this is an object. There we go. Inside this object, we're going to have a label of title. Whew, I'm typoing left and right. Title. A name of lowercase title, because that's what we want our variable name to be. And a widget like before of string, because this is just a simple text input that we want. And then we also need one more, which is that that set of little description text on the home page, and we're labeling that one about text. So we've got a label of about text. We've got a name. In this case, my variable name was about, so we'll have that be about. And then this one is going to take a widget of text, and that's going to create a static text area. So it's not a markdown area. I don't want the user adding bold or adding an image up here. I just want them to have a nice area to have their text input. And it's just pure text, no HTML, no markdown, no WYSIWYG, just text area. So that's all that I need for my home page, but then I'm also going to create a secondary file, which again, this is just the one-off pages, not a collection. And it's going to have a label of, we'll call this site settings. It could be any number of things, but it's really global settings for the site. Site settings make sense to me. It has a name of settings. Again, any variable name will work here. And then the file in this case is going to be inside of our data folder, which I believe is _ data. Yeah, data / settings.json. It's going to automatically detect this as JSON and actually put the data in there structured as JSON, not structured as YAML and front matter, which is super handy, super thoughtful of the Netlify CMS team. And then just like before, we're going to specify fields, and it's going to take an array of fields. So in this case, we had two pieces of data. We had our label, which we're calling site name, and that's going to be in the title of the site. It's going to be used if there's no logo. It's going to be put where that logo should be. It has a name of site name camel case, like that, and it's a widget of string. And then we also have a field that is our logo field. So label logo is going to have a name, which is the variable name again of logo, and then it's going to take a widget of image. And because I actually want the user in this use case, like maybe you don't have a logo as a new and up and coming user group, you don't want this to be a required field, and out of the box, all Netlify fields are required fields. Netlify CMS fields are required fields. So in this case, we want this to be required set to false. That way, if a user doesn't want to input that, they do not have to. It is just there if they want to, you know, make their site a little classier. So again, if you have any questions, make sure to post them over in our chat box. It will show up down below my beautiful face up here in the live stream. That way people watching after the fact can see it as well. But this is the basics of setting things up. We can also, if we wanted to, go in and create another collection, but I'm at about 30 minutes and I want to make sure that I'm respectful of y'all's time. We can make a collection for sponsors as well. And I'll actually just pull this down and show you kind of the finalized version that is my cheat sheet up here. So basically, back in Git Gateway, we've got collections, which we wrote our post collection first. But then here is our sponsors collection. So again, it's got a label, a name, the folder that it lives in. So if we come over here into our tree, you can see we have the sponsors folder here. And then the ability to create in the admin the slug that we want this to come out as, which is just the slug that is input from the URL. And then it takes a name, an image, and a URL. And in this case, there is no markdown. There is nothing in this. And so we won't actually get that big markdown box. And all we need to do is manage our data. You could very easily have made this maybe a JSON file in the data. It could go either way, depends on how you want to handle your sponsors. So really, it is 6 of one, half dozen of the other. You can do this in any way you need to, and the Netlify CMS allows you to do that pretty much on the fly. So if we take a look, there's a whole bunch of other widgets you can give. The Boolean widget is kind of what we had for I'm trying to think of a use case there. There are use cases I've used them before. Basically, if you want true or false. One thing I might use this for, I think it is set up this way on my personal blog, is if I want my Twitter card data, that meta information up there, to go from being the small view with the image next to my information to the large view, because I've got maybe a bigger image, I set a Boolean value on that, and that allows for that. Object allows you to build custom objects. Relation allows you to go find other collections. You can even filter them, which is super handy. And it gives you a type ahead search into that other collection. We might do another Netlify CMS tutorial just getting into maybe each of the more advanced widgets that are in there. Select gives you a nice input around, maybe if you want to offer up 3 different templates for a blog post, you could have your layouts be a select widget that allows the user to just pull one of those in. So yeah, a lot of different things. I think map is a very, very new one. I haven't actually implemented this, but it actually allows you to grab location information, takes a JSON string of the geolocation stuff. Again, I haven't actually used that one yet. That one's, I think, relatively new. But a lot of cool stuff going on. And this is all open source, fully free. It is written in React, so if you know JavaScript, you know React, you can definitely go and contribute. NetlifyCMS.org. They also are looking for any write-ups for tutorials for building this into a site. Documentation, I actually have, I think, one pull request where I made a typo change in there, which is still a mark of pride for me. I'm a contributor on the Netlify CMS for that one little typo change. But definitely it is super fully fledged for the type of CMS that it is. It's not looking to be the end all be all of CMSs, but if you're looking for something that has a Git-based workflow that allows you to have simple things edited, this is at the top of the list because it is free. It is super well thought out. It's super easy to implement. It really does take about 30 minutes to get up and running with a medium to simple site. And from there, you're kind of off to the races. And then you can also, the cool thing is you can create custom widget options and some other stuff. There's a lot going on. They're also starting to work towards some cool stuff with media. You can use Netlify's new large media or Cloudinary or some of the other names in handling custom image sizes and that sort of thing. Right now, I haven't hit that use case, but I'm only using it on small personal projects. as I use it more and more, I imagine I'll hit one of those. But yeah, super handy, super well thought out. I've really enjoyed the times I've used it. The Hack Memphis website, which is a hackathon I run here in Memphis, Tennessee, uses it to manage our sponsors as well as some of the simple data, so I can hand it to one of our kind of content writers, and she can go in and update the site. Although she never did, and I still updated it, but it was still way easier than myself going into code, writing that stuff up, and pushing and accepting the pull request, and all of that workflow that goes into it. It is all baked into the Netlify CMS. So that's it. I'm going to plug a few things, but if you have questions, go ahead and put them in chat right now. And hopefully by the time I am done plugging the various items that I have, we will be at the point of catch up. So we will have that over there. I am speaking at a couple conferences. I'm speaking at Revolution Conf in Virginia Beach in June. I am speaking, doing a workshop at KCDC in Kansas City in July. And then I'm also in talks right now to do a CSS grid workshop here in Memphis, Tennessee for the local chapter of AIGA to talk about the design implications of grid and going forward into new and unexpected territory with design in the near future. So yeah, those are a few things coming up. I still have my Practical CSS Grid course, so if you are interested in that, it's practicalcssgrid.com. You can also go to codecontemporary.com to see all the courses that I'm currently working on. I am actually working with a friend of mine on a Netlify basics course that we're going to hopefully put on Udemy in the next couple months. That's not on any of those sites yet, but it's something that is in the works, and why I've been working on static sites and doing these micro tutorials over the past few weeks. So yeah, and if there are any topics that you are interested in the realm of CSS, in the realm of static sites, in the realm of serverless functions, JavaScript, anything else, make sure to let me know in the comments, as well as maybe go implement Netlify CMS on a simple site and kind of tell me what you thought about it. Let me know how you feel about this idea of a Git-based workflow in a CMS. I come from a long line of server-side CMSs, WordPress. The last company I worked for, we had our own custom content management system. Oh, questions are coming in. So yeah, so I'm definitely in that realm. But since I started working on static sites, it's been super quick and it's been super easy, and I've really enjoyed it all along the way. So having a CMS to go alongside that is super helpful. There are also bigger CMSs out there that are headless CMSs, but a lot of the big names in that cost a decent bit of money. So this is great to have a free solution that is polished and well thought out. Question, have you done anything with GoCommerce? I have not done anything with GoCommerce. Personal aside, I hate e-commerce. It really is not my cup of tea. I've done some e-commerce sites. I've worked with Shopify, BigCommerce. I played with Magento and quickly wanted to run screaming away from it as fast as possible. WooCommerce, that sort of thing. So no, I've not used GoCommerce yet, but I am starting to think about some ideas around e-commerce in the age of static sites, and there's a lot of great blog posts out there about that too. So yeah, if there's interest in GoCommerce, maybe I'll look it up and we can do some sort of small tutorial on that as well. Thanks, Sean. I appreciate the compliment. If there are any additional questions, hit me up on Twitter. You can see the link down below, but it's twitter.com/BROB, B-Rob or Brob, codecontemporary.com. And then if you like this sort of content, if you're looking for more like this or more polished, I do have other videos on my YouTube channel. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and click the little notification icon, because I do go live every week on Wednesday mornings with content like this. So I think there are no other questions happening right now. I also want to thank Tony from the Netlify CMS team. He's, I think, been along this tutorial, which is great and nerve-wracking for me to have somebody on the contribution team watching along and hopefully not seeing too many mistakes that I made along the way. And hopefully the Netlify build that I've got is going live and not breaking, so I'm not sure what happened there. But we'll definitely talk more about that in the future. So until next week, keep drinking some caffeinated beverages and keep making amazing web projects. See you next time.